Jason Magee. I've had the great pleasure of knowing Jason for many years now. He's a friend, and he's the former CEO of ConnectWise, a company that I had a strong partnership with when I was an MSP. Still do a lot of work with them, and he left ConnectWise in November of 2024, months later, to become the new CEO at Cynet. Him and his team were gracious enough to have me in their Tampa office earlier today. Great team, very easy to work with. But Jason and I have been talking about having a conversation, a recorded conversation for a couple of years now. And it was really, really good. Got to kind of ask him about his, what the transition was like, of course, but how he views leadership and how it's interesting how many times discipline came up, by the way. Not me provoking it, by the way, just naturally. But it's a great conversation on what he does, how he looks at leadership, how he can help technologists, MSPs, etc. He told me more than once that I asked him a question that he's never heard before, but it was a great conversation. He's just naturally a good talker and a great conversationalist, lots of charisma, really smart and really sharp, and is able to prioritize. And I asked him about being proactive versus reactive, and where innovation is leading, where AI is, of course. But just a great conversation with Jason. I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to having much more conversation with him. Thank you so much, Jason, for having me, and thank you to your team, and thanks everyone for watching and listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because I was working way too much. Before you know it, I found myself 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. Took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People think there's some secret. Ask me, how'd you lose that weight? Like there's some secret. There is no secret. How did I lose the weight? Just one word: discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends, colleagues convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission: how do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport, wellness, business, technology, science, art, and culture. And I eventually ask them how discipline plays a role in their life. Podcast vision: growth through learning from others. And so your shoulder now, are you 100%?
Well, it was the neck.
In this fast-paced MSP landscape, how do you stay ahead? Introducing MSPinfluencer.com, your ultimate hub for MSP news, insights, and community connection, powered by ForzaDash. More than 75,000 MSPs subscribe to our MSP Influencer Pulse weekly newsletter, staying informed and ahead of industry trends. Tune in to emerging podcasts from Joey Pinz and leading MSP voices, offering essential tips, powerful insights, and success stories. Explore our multi-authored blogs, crafted specifically for MSP leaders, delivering fresh perspectives and actionable strategies. Celebrate excellence with the industry-leading ForzaDash MSP Influencer Awards, recognizing innovation, leadership, and impact in the MSP community. Join thousands of MSP professionals who trust MSPinfluencer.com to grow their business and expand their networks. MSPinfluencer.com, where today's MSP leaders connect, collaborate, and conquer, all powered by the ForzaDash platform, helping MSP vendors work effectively with MSPs and helping MSPs grow. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, all good. Yeah, no, I'll never be 100%.
Really? Ever?
Yeah. No, I mean, because I had 3 vertebrae fused together, so my range of motion will be, I don't know the exact percent. They actually tested me today, and since I started physical therapy, my range of motion improved significantly from what it was 2-3 months ago. Where backing out of a parking spot, I couldn't really even turn right. I had to turn my whole body, right? So, but yeah, much better now. But I'll never be 100% to someone who didn't have the surgery. Right?
And there wasn't one particular act that started this. It just, you're sleeping wrong, you just felt pain, you think you said?
Wait, the act that started?
How did it happen? Yeah.
Yeah, no idea. It could have been from when I got hit by a car when I was 10, 11 years old, and just, never got diagnosed.
Amazing.
And never really became an issue until, this time last year, right? At the time when it was going on, I don't know if you and I had this conversation back then, but January, everyone does dry January, or not everyone, but, it's a big thing, right? or hey, I'm going to get on the health kick. And so I decided last January, going to do dry January for most of January. Then I was going to stop drinking caffeine, right? I got my coffee, so I like my caffeine. I was going to walk 3 to 5 miles a day.
Good.
And I was going to do a 20-minute like daily calisthenic thing, and new me transition between ConnectWise and what was to be next. And I get like 3-4 days into all that, and I started to feel discomfort in my neck. I'm like, I'm pushing myself too much, but I'm like, I gotta do the full month of what I'm trying to do. And I kept going, and actually when I was active, it actually wasn't bothering me that much. It was when I stopped. And then, mid-January, it was really bad, and then it started to get better. And then when I started, then I'm like, I'm not doing dry February, right? I couldn't wait to get my Dunkin' Donuts coffee, and the calisthenic 28 thing I was doing, day thing I was doing, I completed it. So, check. I was feeling good from that standpoint. But then my neck and shoulder, and I thought it was my shoulder at the time. It was just like a lot of pain and discomfort, and I couldn't sleep and this and that. Pinged my doctor, went in, they're doing all these tests, gave me a cortisone shot thinking it was just like, I forget what it is, but buildup of stuff in the shoulder, and did all that. Nothing was working. It was getting worse, and then got to a point where I think at one point they gave me like, I don't know, and I'm probably exaggerating, but it was like 15 different injections into different areas of the shoulder and back, because it was that like, bad. I remember early February when I started at Cynet, we were up in Boston for sales kickoff, and we were doing an all-up thing, and I mean, I was walking around like this, like, because if I put my head and neck and shoulders back, that's when it really hurt.
Damn.
And then came back from that trip, and he's like, all right, let's get you in for MRIs on your shoulders. Did the MRI on the right shoulder, and they just saw the normal stuff. I forget what it's called, not spurs, but like buildup of calcium or whatever. They're like, that wouldn't be causing the, neck and the numbing of your hand and all that. And then they sent me back to do MRI on the neck, and that's when they saw that I had severe compression at C5, 6, 7 area, mainly in C6, and that's when they said the surgery that needed to happen was ACDF. Wow. It's called. So, it's the Peyton Manning surgery.
It's Peyton Manning had it, really?
Yeah.
Oh, boy. It's bad when somebody gets named after it.
Yeah, but the difference between he and I, and, I'm still too early in my recovery, is he went through intense rehab and then won a Super Bowl.
Yes.
Not that long after. So there's hope.
That's different said. There certainly is hope. Yeah, but I mean, I remember talking to you, like you couldn't even sleep.
Yeah. Fast forward to today, I do have a sleep challenge, but it's because my wife will tell you this, prior to all this, I was pretty aggressive sleeper, tossing and turning, and like at times, like, I'm sure it feels like, I'm bouncing around. But it's more of a mental thing now that I'm like, all right, well, I can't do that because I don't want to injure my neck or mess up all the, I've got a plate and screws and all that, as the bone is fusing together. And so it's more of a mental thing that I'm like, all right, well, I got to turn. So I wake up and I'm like, oh, I got to turn. And then I turn and go back to sleep. I do that probably 5-8 times a night. Wow. So sleep is still a hard to come by thing, but that's more of a mental thing. Yeah. Not a year, but April 15th or 17th will be a year since the surgery. So, and everyone's different, right? Full recovery is somewhere between north of 6 months, but up to 12 or so months, right? And by recovery, the bone fusing together.
Jeez. So. Yeah, modern. It was all here at Tampa Bay General?
Yeah, Tampa. TGH.
TGH, yeah. This community here in Tampa is very proud of that hospital.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting dynamic of this great city. So you left ConnectWise at around November of 24.
Yeah, I think November 11th, I stepped off stage and
That's right, I was
at
there.
IT Nation
Yeah.
and stage exit left, right?
Well,
Something like that.
yeah, yeah, I never came back. Interesting. And so then you didn't start Cynet till February.
Yeah.
So what were those 2 months or 6 weeks like? You went from
Well,
100 miles an hour busy to,
almost 3 months, so
yeah,
just shy of 3 months.
Huh.
Well, the thing people don't tell you is when you do have a time in between is you wind up doing more work,
Really?
right? Because you're looking, all right, at that point I wasn't still 100%, hey, it's Cynet. So went through the process of interviewing, and
Oh,
I was
wow.
few times a day doing interviews, right? Look, it was an overwhelming positive response of the amount of people who reached out that wanted to interview me to be CEO and
Oh, that's
lead their
nice.
company to the next level in the industry, by industry, managed service provider
Yes.
industry, channel, outside of the industry, large companies, public companies, mid-sized companies, you name it. And so when you're doing that process, it's a full-time job,
Yeah.
right? You're doing a couple of calls a day, you're getting on planes, interviewing going in person to interview people or them to interview you, and then at the same time going through the Cynet process, and then obviously I'm still on a couple other boards and doing advisory work and everything else I'm connected with.
So during that process, Jason, are they interviewing you or are you interviewing them?
It's both, right? I mean, any good interview process, it's always bi-directional,
Right.
right? It's hopefully it doesn't matter what level of role or position in a company, um, you know you've got to want to work at that company,
Yeah.
right? And because if you go through the process and you didn't do your diligence and you land somewhere, again, regardless of level or position, you'll be unhappy,
Yeah, you
right?
surely will.
And then there's impact on not only your professional and performance at the job that you stepped into, but also at home because you're unhappy there, and then that bleeds over and so on. So yeah, I mean, no different going through that process, right? Yeah, I'm interviewing, kind of seeing what the game plan is, what the board or investors or the executive team are aligned behind. What is team dynamic? What's the culture? Is it something I'm passionate about, right? What they're doing, what they're solving, what's their mission and vision, and all that good stuff. So yeah, it's both.
That
Them
must have been
interviewing
some.
me interviewing them.
Yeah, both. But that must have been something. I'm sure you had a lot of offers, a lot of options. Why did you choose Cynet?
Yeah, again, it was a great. I was flattered. It was a lot of positive response, and yeah, I had lots of offers,
Yeah.
verbal offers, papered offers, and all that good stuff. And look, I get asked this question a lot, Joe, around why Cynet.
Yeah.
The funny thing about the Cynet one is it's the one that I engaged with first before I even knew that I was going to step away from ConnectWise.
Really?
And it was, a bunch of reasons, and I'll get into some of that story in a second. But the why behind it is the chairman, Douglas Brockett. He and I known each other and worked together when he was running things over at Storagecraft, and we had the partnership at ConnectWise, and so on, and mutual respect, and did a lot of business together, and so on. So he was there. As I was going through the process, right, he validated a lot of things, in terms of the company and their approach and direction and so on that intrigued me. But regardless of Cynet, when I knew that I was going to make a change and go through a transition, you start asking yourself, what is next, right? If you go to my wife, she'd be like, retire. And, if anyone knows me, me. I'd get bored probably pretty quick,
Yeah.
right? So I said, what is next? And obviously, we're at this point in time in, not just technology, the world around AI and automation and cyber and the threats and increase in threat landscape and all these things. And I'm like, well, let me start with technology. Where do I want to be, right? And I very quickly got to the point of, right, well, definitely wanted to be in the cyber world, right? I was passionate about it. It was a lot of things that, back in the day, Arnie and I put in motion, some years ago at ConnectWise. And, then I kept taking that forward at ConnectWise when I stepped in as CEO role to, build out a pretty sizable business unit there. So passionate about that, still very relevant, and will continue to be for the foreseeable future. And things are getting more complex and not easier, and threat actors will, do more, right? And then the whole automation AI craze, and not a craze, but it's the future. So I'm like, all right, got to be in those areas. I'm a platform guy, right? What we built, what we were building and reinventing and reimagining over at ConnectWise before I left was another platform. So big on platform. Platforms win, right? Look at Salesforce, look at ServiceNow, look at Microsoft, look at all the big technology, Amazon, right? You name it. They're all platforms. Platforms win. And, how to make sure that, wherever next, regardless of technology, solution, industry, whatever, it had to be a platform play. And then the added thing that I was looking for, right, because I wanted to be able to make a immediate impact on whatever the company was and what was going to be next. And what I didn't want to do was step into a company that had a customer perception or brand problem, right? Because I didn't want to have to go in and step in and spend, 12, 18, 24 months on fixing that, right? Because that's, it's fixable, don't get me wrong. It's just, all right, for those years, right, we're suppressing our expectations and what's possible and things like that. And then you get to the fun and focus on growth and doing the great things and be an innovator and all that. So it had to be someone that was in good standing with the customers and good feedback from the social world and people interacting with the company. And as I continue to go through the process and chat with the great investors we have, the founder, who was the prior CEO that I've succeeded, Doug, the chairman, it was apparent that when I went down my checklist, right, yes, it's a cyber company. Great. You know what? They've got an AI and automation component. Wow. 2 birds, 1 stone, right? I'm getting both, right? So check. Platform. It's a unified all-in-one platform that does not just endpoint. It has a little bit of network and a little email, a little of posture management and all these other things, right? And platform concept, right? And we'll continue to build out on that platform concept, in the roadmap in this new calendar year and fiscal year and so on. So it had all the things that I wanted to look for. And then I started to do, right, social search, right? What's being said, right? And no company's perfect, right? So it's not like I didn't find anything, negative or indifferent and so on. But it was few and far between, right? And some of that's size and scale and so on. But even some of the comments were around, they were great, right? Had no problem. They didn't have the name, right? The brand name. Now, not a brand problem. Just didn't have the name, right? No one knew them, right? I'm like, all right, that I could work with, right? Then I'm looking through all the materials that, Doug and one of the lead investors sent to me. You could see track NPS score or high NPS score, so validating some of the external stuff. Started to chat with people, right?
Customers?
Customers, partners. They had great things to say about it, right? Again, constructive feedback, everything like that, which you would expect. And then then there's this thing called MITRE, attack evaluations, happens annually. Cynet performs pretty well every year for now 5 years after the least recent, right? You could go look at it. You could see where, we score and perform in all the categories. So, more and more, I'm like, that's pretty nice. Again, cyber, AI automation, it's a platform, really good customer sentiment, right? So it started to come together, and, even then, I'm like, all right, why would I do this? And, I remember, when I was having most fun in my career, right? And even my early tenure in ConnectWise, where I was having the most fun, was when we were a bit smaller, more agile, and focused on growth and all these other things about moving an industry forward and so on. And I'm like, that's it, right? So I had all of what I was looking for in the next company. And then when was I having the most fun in my career, right? So ConnectWise, I had that, and other stints in my career, I had that. So then that's when I'm like, all right, Doug, let's do this. And yeah, look, it was an easy process. I started chatting with, I think, the recruiters and Doug in June of 24.
Wow.
It possibly earlier, but I think it was June. I made decision literally the week after, I think, IT Nation. I'm like, all right, Doug, let's start really chatting. I think we came to terms, sometime before the holidays. And that's all while I'm, traveling, interviewing, getting offers from others, and so on. So yeah, that's kind of the story, the why behind Cynet.
And the transition of you becoming CEO at Cynet, how different was it than you mentioned Arnie before, Arnie Bellini, when he left, when the founder left, and you became CEO at a company you've already been at? The transition was very different.
Yeah, so I'm not going to say vastly different, but different for sure, because at ConnectWise, leading up to the partnership with Thoma Bravo, leading up for Arnie to hand the torch over to me, I was the COO of the company, and prior to that, on the go-to-market side, doing my thing over there. So I knew a lot about the company, the culture, the people, the who's who, the leaders in the company, the customers, the partners, all that, right? So I wasn't starting from zero, right? So from that point by itself, that's the difference, right? Versus coming in here, obviously, I knew their aspirations and their desires and how I could help them and make the immediate impact. Obviously, I know how to take things that are a bit on the early stage side and scale them. So my transition here was all about that, the maturity and, figuring out what was not working, what wasn't even in place, because, small company, we don't have everything,
That's right.
There's gaps and so on. So part of my transition was, so December we come to terms and, yep, this is what we're doing. I put all the other, activity on the side, and then immediately, even though I haven't started yet, now I'm transitioning already with Eyal, who was the founder and the current CEO. We're doing calls a couple of times a week. He's filling me in as to, the things that I had already known at ConnectWise. So I jumped pretty much, head first prior to starting, so I had a starting point. So that's probably another aspect of the difference. And yeah, look, I mean, there's only so much I was going to be able to do. And yeah, you step in anywhere, there's surprises, right? So
Did you have to unlearn anything?
unlearn, I wouldn't call unlearn, but obviously, look, I mean, I'm not perfect, right? I've made mistakes, right? Whether at ConnectWise, in life, so it's, all right, let's make sure that I don't make the same mistake, right? The great thing about experiences and my journey, professional career journey, whether me or anyone, right? You have those experiences to draw from, and most people draw from the good experiences and the bad, right? And the bad is, all right, let's stay away from doing that, right? Because I have pattern recognition now, right? Hey, I've tried that, been there, done that, not going to work, right? So I could get in with the team, help educate them, and so on. So not so much unlearn, but leverage the experience, the journey, the pattern recognition to make sure we don't make the same mistakes, and then leverage the good. I mean, if I purposely unlearn things, in my mind, that's me purging it from memory, which means history will repeat itself, and I'll make the same mistake twice.
Right.
So.
And for those making that kind of transition, Jason, so they're going from one company to another, whether it's a smaller scale, a larger scale, the way you did it, what advice do you have for them?
Well, so this may or may not answer your question, but I think I'll touch upon pieces. Look, large scale, and I kind of joke even with my team now, right? And even when I'm talking to people who were at larger companies going to smaller, right? And look, the benefit I had, in hindsight, I had was I did the journey, right? I was part of the journey early on at ConnectWise and helped make it a big market leader and so on, right? Thing is, when you're large, growing, profitable, you have teams of people assigned to pretty much, anything you could think of that a company needs to be doing, right? When you get to a smaller company, all right, who does that? Well, you got to remind yourself, you got to look in the mirror and be like, that's the person that's going to go take care of that, right? So you got to get more creative. You got to roll up the sleeves. You got to be a bit more involved in areas that, at larger companies, you may not have, right? You may have had a person that would have been able to handle that for you and do it. And here, and any smaller company, right, you're not going to have all the resources available. So you've got to learn new experiences you've got to go through. So.
Yeah, and it seems like you do a really good job of, I can just imagine these large pros and cons lists you must have had, right? With all these options and trying to weigh that out. What makes a great leader, Jason?
Have you figured that out yet?
I haven't. Let me ask you this. What's the difference between a leader and a manager?
Yeah, so these aren't technical definitions and, responses, just to be clear, right? But manager is managing things and people, right? Tasks, projects,
Goals,
yeah, you name it.
metrics.
Now, leaders care about all that stuff, right? And they want to hold people accountable to deliver on that. But leaders are hopefully inspiring, motivating. They are leading the way, right? Like lead by example, right? Don't just sit in an ivory tower. And a lot of what I believe in, and you go back to anyone who's been on a leadership team with me, I don't believe in the ivory tower leader model, right?
No, you don't.
Everyone has to be involved. You got to know the business, not just your business. You got to know what's going on with your peers and the other functional orgs and so on. So lead by example, know the business. Don't just be someone that's looking at numbers and saying everything's wrong. No one's perfect. Everyone has their challenges, right? Leaders understand that, and they go in with a collaborative mindset, seek to understand, and whatnot. I'm not saying managers don't do any of that, Joe, but the day-to-day function is just materially different from that standpoint. Things people don't necessarily like also, right? And again, this is my opinion, right? Leaders have got to be available. They're always on, right? And, I hate to say it, for me, it is part of the expectation, right? Managers, and please for all managers out there, because I was in a management role at one point in time, you're doing a function, and
very
sometimes a little bit easier to say, hey, I came in at 8, left at 6, and kind of clocked out. Again, been there, done that. Very important. It's what makes a company do what it does and make things happen. But leaders, right? I mean, if that manager, if someone has something going on in the evening, weekend, or whatnot, you got to make yourself available at times. So I guess, outside of that example, I think leaders have to be ready and available, right? When something hits the fan, you go into action. Again, you pull in the team that managers are and so on. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of my view of some aspects of what's the difference between manager and leader. And you look, there are technical differences. You could look ChatGPT at Gemini at whatever your AI choice is. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had managers.
And by the way, not every not every manager or person who has direct reports or leaders, and not every individual contributor. I'm botching this a little
Sure.
bit, but even an individual contributor can be a leader,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
A leader is, personality. It's, again, a person people want to follow, right? Individual contributors could play that role, right? So that's the other part of, what's the difference, right? You've been in companies, you ran companies, owned a company, you have multiple initiatives and companies going on, right? And everyone has them, those go-to people in the company, right? That managers in, C-level go to, right? Their peers go to them, right? Those people, assuming that it's in the positive way, they're leaders, right? They're just leading in a different way because they don't have the C-level title or VP or director level. But yeah, so that's another aspect.
Yeah, it's very. I've had managers who thought they were leaders and they weren't. And sometimes managers look down, like they look up to a leader, like it's different. Both are very important. We need managers to run companies, and we need leaders to lead. It's just a very kind of different skill set, and it can be a hard discussion sometimes.
Yeah, and again, leader doesn't have to be high up in the org structure.
Right, it can be anywhere. Are leaders born, or can they be trained?
Yeah, look, I don't think I was necessarily born a leader, Joe, right? I think people have passions and desires, and, they get motivated by seeing what other people have done and how they've done it, and, their experience in it, because they report to managers or leaders that they say, hey, I respond well to that versus not, and then they kind of help train and educate themselves. A lot of what I bring to the table, I think, as a leader, is I've read in business books, I've read in annual reports and how people conduct themselves, and so on, right? And then learning from the leaders that, I've been around. But yeah, I don't think I was necessarily born a leader. I think, it came with, in my mind, where I wanted to be in life and get to and so on. And up till I became the CEO of a company, I always wanted to be the number two to any leader that I worked for.
Interesting.
Right? So whether it was a, executive sales leader, I wanted to be the number two to them, right? CEO, I wanted to be the COO. So when I got promoted to the COO role at ConnectWise, right, I'm like, that's the ultimate number two job. And then, then it turns out that I do the CEO stuff pretty well as well.
You do.
So.
Were there things that you learned about leadership back then that you disagree with now?
I wouldn't say disagree with now, right? Because there's points in time that different things are needed, right? And then there's the generational stuff, right? Generations, I'm not going to say dictate or mandate, but they help things evolve, right? So you've got to learn to lead in different ways, right? And ways that I was leading 10 years ago, am I doing it all now? Well, probably not, because different generation, different people, different ways or aspects of the globe that I, interact with and so on. So again, I think most leaders, assuming they're the good aspects of leadership, things that they've used and done and whatnot to lead at certain points in time were appropriate at that point in time. And then as things evolve, so do leadership styles.
Yeah, you have to keep growing. Speaking of growth, how do you know when a company is growing versus just getting louder?
What do you mean by louder?
More visibility, you're seeing them more, but they're actually, is that growth?
Well, I think from an external standpoint, if it's not a public company, right, probably harder to tell the difference between what you're hearing and seeing on the outside, because someone could be a great marketing engine and create a whole bunch of fan base out there that, touting and so on, and that could be, thought of as, wow, that company's growing. In some cases it is, right? That is an indicator. If you're on the inside or if it's a public company, right, easy to tell who's growing, right? There's numbers and,
They're
what's their
published.
financial profile.
Yeah.
And then, outside of that, there's indicators, right? So, if I just look at Cynet, right, when I came on board, the one of the main things that, we're orchestrating is how do we accelerate growth, right? Well, if you look at, all right, here's the goal. How do I know the things that we're putting in place are starting to work, right? And there's a whole lot of things that lead up to it, right? Which, i.e., closed deals and more revenue equals more year over year and turns into that growth percentage. Well, key indicator to that is what's your pipeline doing? Qualified pipeline to be exact, right, or clear. So I look at how is the pipeline, right? And if you continue to see growth in your pipeline, qualified pipeline, that's a good indicator that you're going to start growing, right? If you have that trend, right, and you're looking at it, you could say that company's growing, right? Because ultimately, there's what's your win rates, what's your pipeline coverage. If you got the appropriate pipeline number to have your coverage and you have the win rates, you're going to deliver on your numbers, right? And delivering on numbers and keep investing in go-to-market resources, whether it's demand gen dollars, whether it's add SDRs for additional inbound, outbound, whether it's adding more quota-carrying sales reps for capacity to run more deal cycle and all that stuff. There's lots of indicators in there that can tell you if a company's growing. There's other ratios and sales efficiency metrics, LTV to CAC ratio can tell you if a company's healthy and growing. Sales efficiency, what's the productivity of a sales rep and all that stuff. Retention, customer retention is a big aspect. Better to keep your partners and customers, right? This way you don't have to go and spend as much to fill the top of the funnel.
And growth just in services and maturity and the engine. As a CEO, how do you maintain all those different areas and make sure they're all growing?
Well, how does one maintain? Well, it starts with, do you have the right org structure, do you have the right team and people, people that know what good looks like and what needs to be done, right? Because the key thing is I want to make sure I'm surrounded with the people that, have that pattern recognition, know what needs to be done and how to go do it, make sure they're looking at the key metrics, right? So every week my leaders and I come together, we look at, our scorecard, right? Key metrics of the company, call it 20 to 30, right? But when you double click, they have a whole lot more, right? And what I mean by that is, yes, I'm looking at pipeline as a key indicator, right? Every day, did we generate enough pipeline? Every week did we? Every month, every quarter, right? You got to win the day, the week, the month, the quarter, right? Because you can't generate enough pipeline the last day of a month or quarter to make up for it. And then there's, time to close, right? So if you do it all on the last day, you're going to miss your quarter. But I'm looking at pipeline. And if pipeline's slow, that's when I'll go to whether it's, all right, what's going on? If they come back that, hey, marketing has all their stuff together, then it becomes, all right, then I turn to my sales leader and say, hey, what's going on, right? But yeah, so I'm looking at those key things. That's high level enough, but can tell you, all right, which direction do I need to look in?
What's a bad day like for you, and how do you reset and make sure you don't react impulsively?
What's a bad day? I mean, a bad day is, on the personal side, I let someone in my family down, or,
Of course.
something along those lines that, I disappoint, or bad day, professionally is we let a customer down or a partner down, or something in the, system that we've put in and will continue to evolve, falls, right? That's when I start to have a bad day, right? Otherwise, look, I love what I do, right? It's why, It's why I didn't retire when my wife's like, hey,
Yeah.
will you consider retirement and things like that. No, never. But no, that's when I have a bad day. Otherwise, look, going back to leaders and managers and so on, right? We all have a responsibility to be problem solvers, right? Things are going to come up, right? Breaches are going to come up. Someone's going to screw up and fail and this and that. And, yeah, you learn from those things, right? I don't ever get pissed. It's like,
Right.
all right, there is the problem. How are we going to go solve it? Right? What are the options we have? And as long as everyone understands that and we come together and we're united behind, all right, let's go solve this. It's not a bad day, right? It's a learning.
What if discipline wasn't about punishment, but about unlocking your best self? I spent 2.5 years writing Discipline for Greatness because discipline changed my life. And I know it can change yours too. This isn't theory. Inside, you'll find real, practical steps you can use immediately to focus better, build stronger habits, reduce stress, accomplish your goals, and bring more balance to your life. Whether you're trying to get healthier, improve your career, or simply feel more control, this book gives you the framework. Start today. Grab your copy of Discipline for Greatness at joeypinz.com/book. Thank you.
Experience. Now, I don't always like having a whole lot of learning experiences pile up on the same
Sure,
day and week,
sure.
but those could add up to be like, all right, it's time to go, let's go grab a bourbon somewhere, Joe.
Nice. Nothing wrong with that. How do you prioritize and stay proactive versus, of course, I run a company, like you mentioned, a lot smaller, but it seems like a lot of my time is putting out fires. And so how do you stay, prioritize so you're proactive so you're not doing that and you're not always reacting?
Look, there's always going to be a part of reacting.
Yeah.
Right? There's a balance. And look, this is one of those things that evolve over time with, I think, most people, right? You try new systems, you try new things, and so on. I kind of use your thing to some extent. It's discipline, right? And what do I mean by that? It's like, all right, how are you setting up your day, right? So you have the time where you're thinking strategic, more proactive, and then you're spending X amount of time on the proactive stuff. I think that's probably the best thing that works for me, because otherwise everyone could open up their email inbox and be inundated with the reactive, the things that pop up and the escalations and can you help me with this and can you give me an answer? You get consumed by it, right? Respond to the email, then you get 3 emails deep, they respond, so then you respond, and you get caught in that, right? The only way out of that is make sure you carve out time to work on the important stuff, right? Leading the companies, being strategic, thinking about the future, some of the fun stuff, right? So I think that's the best way, right? In terms of how do I not get consumed by, all the fire drills and so on. And, in terms of prioritization, it's about having the plan, right? And, I work with my team on this quite a bit, right? Will there ever be a true North Star or destination? The answer is no, right? There are milestones and then there are things that you're marching towards, right? Think vision, right? There's vision you're marching towards. You may never get to the vision, but at least it gives you a place that you're trying to go to. So then when things come in and you have to prioritize, be like, all right, well, out of these 3 things, which thing is getting us closer to there, right? Whether it's a financial metric, whether it's a product roadmap, and hey, we want to build this platform to do X, Y, Z, right? Well, now you know what X, Y, Z in the platform needs to be. All right, what are the key things that you have to do along the way that will get you closer there? And if there's something that's not, maybe it gets put on the long list, maybe it goes into a different sprint at a later time, and so on, right? No perfect system,
Right.
but that's what helps me prioritize, right? So, I kind of know with my go-to-market, right, hey, what we're striving for over the next 18 months, and that's kind of the North Star. All right, well, hey, all the things that come up throughout the day and questions asked and the wants and needs and, shiny objects, All right, well, will this stuff help us get there? Right? Product, we know where we're taking our platform over the next 3 years. And look, it's always, North Star is always subject to change. We live in a high-paced industry. Just think of what, AI has done in the last 3 years, right? It's transformed everything,
Sure
right?
has.
And if you didn't adjust, right, and move quick, people are being left behind, right? North Stars just help you from the prioritization standpoint, and it helps with alignment as well, right? Because if you don't have a destination of sorts, it's hard to drive towards alignment, right? How can I get a product leader or an engineering prospect to come work for us if they don't know what we stand for and where we're going towards and the exciting stuff that they're going to be able to work on and contribute and so on? It's a lot harder, right? So, that North Star, the destination, whatever you want to call it, the goals, right? That helps you prioritize, drive alignment, get people motivated and excited, and so on. So I said a lot more outside of
It's exactly right, but it's easier said than done a lot of times, right? But if you align it all properly. Talk about innovation, Jason. How do you know where to innovate and kind of ignore the hype and where to focus? There's so much. The CES is going on right now, and I keep getting inundated by all these things, and most of them are completely unnecessary, by the way, but kind of fun. But how do you know where to innovate in Cynet?
Yeah, look, I mean, innovation's not easy, and it's not easy for a few reasons. But the main thing on how do you, right? Starts with listening to customers and partners, right? Listen to the market, the audience, the customer profile that you help serve, in our case, protect and serve, and all that stuff. They may not be seen as the innovators and the thought leaders, but they're the ones that are encountering the problems all day long that need solutions. And your current solution, whether it's Cynet, elsewhere, or whatever, may not solve those needs today, and that's where some good ideas and innovation could come along, right? So it starts with that, right? And then I mean, there's the innovators in the world that Elon Musk. Just look at all the stuff he's touched in innovation and so on, right? It's just a lot, right? Those are different breeds, right? But I think most companies, most leaders, most innovators starts with customers and partners, listening, seeing what gaps they have, what people aren't solving for, what could make their lives easier, and taking that feedback and seeing what's possible.
Where do you think AI and large language models are going, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, they're not going away.
Right.
Right. Now, look, this is still early innings,
Sure
right?
is.
So just look at how far and fast it's progressed between, when ChatGPT hit mainstream a little over 3 years ago till today, right? So it's not going anywhere. It's here and stay. It's only going to continue to move faster, get smarter, for some people scarier. I have a different philosophy on all of the AI robots and so on. I can see why people get concerned and scared. For me, I look at the human race. We've evolved and adapted pretty much every key point in time that we needed to, Industrial Revolution being one of them. And, people are going to lose jobs. And you know what? Well, hey, there may be a short blip, but ultimately long run, better for everyone. Think of the internet and .com, right? Earlier version of this, right? Oh, changed the world. Oh my God, I'm going to be out of a job, and look what it did, right?
Created more and different ones.
Yeah. And we evolve and we become, different versions of ourselves. And we were doing, this task today and leading this group today, and now we're doing that differently in a different fashion tomorrow, right? Think, level one engineer, writing code. Well, now they have an opportunity to leverage AI, write code, and become a manager of bots and LLMs and AI, and making sure that the output that they're providing is producing better quality and so on. Right? So people who evolve and learn and educate and get educated on this stuff will elevate themselves, right? So that was a little bit of rabbit hole of the question.
Sure.
But, my mind is, we're going to evolve, we'll be good, and AI and automation, all that, not going anywhere. It's only going to get more integrated into the way of life, personal, professional. The educational systems will embrace it and adopt it. You name it.
Should it be further than it is now, or is right where it should be? Or has it gotten here too quick? Where do you think we are with it? They say, last I heard, it was like a middle school. They're saying like, we're right at middle school. Did I hear that correctly?
We're early stages.
Yeah, we're still early stages.
I mean, but look, AI, and I forget who said this, it's not a new concept,
Right.
I mean, there's plenty of companies have been around and people talking about it forever, right? Probably 50 years, right? Look at IBM Watson, right? They poured a lot of money into it, before I think people were ready.
Yeah.
And then there became the consumerism, commercialization of it when ChatGPT hit mainstream.
Yeah.
Right. I think I may be off, but 0 to 100 million, users like overnight.
Fastest adoption ever. Yeah.
So I don't know how to answer whether we late or too early. It was probably meant to happen when it did.
And how is AI used with Cynet? Is it in everything that you do?
Yeah, I mean, well, hard for me to say in everything
Right.
we do. From day-to-day stuff that all the colleagues are, doing for their day-to-day work and task and project work, people are using AI. Our engineers are using AI to, help generate code and advance the product and platform, and lots of documentation being leveraged with AI from, the HR department to product to education and release notes and you name it. AI is in the core of the product, right? So how we're able to deliver some of our best-in-class stats and ratios of SOC analysts to endpoints within the MDR portion of what we do. And just be clear, we're a platform first, right? So we have the technology platform, and then for those that need and have lean teams, we have the MDR aspect that they could leverage as well. But a lot of what we do is through AI or correlation of data, behavioral analytics, and stuff like that, right? And the great thing is this predates me, right? This is where talking about innovation, Al and the founders, when they launched the company, they saw a need and, built AI and automation as the foundation of it. Right? And it's why we're able to do what we do and compete against some of the biggest players in the world, and in some cases do it better than they do, right? And it's because of the automation and AI. So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say 100% it's everywhere, but it's in a lot of what we do, how we do it, from the platform to behind the scenes to in the sales organization, from generating leads, you name it, it's everywhere.
How should MSPs, do you think? How should they be using AI?
It's where I should say, go to my keynote from a couple of years ago.
How's it changed since then?
Yeah, I mean, since then, and like anyone who was speaking about it, years ago, all still relevant content that we all said.
Yes.
It's the terminology, the use cases got refined and fine-tuned, less about, you should be able to people are, and just faster and, more options and, again, more use cases, right? What was the full question again?
How should MSPs be using AI?
Yeah, so, I mean, there's front of house, there's back of house, there's in the service, right? Every company, not just MSPs, should be using it everywhere, right? And part of it is you got to train and educate your people, right? So for people out there trying to sell AI, right? You got to eat your own dog food. Maybe you've got to spend a little money on getting your teams educated and trained on the latest tools and platforms that are best suited for their function or their needs and so on. So whether you're an MSP or not, training, right? So I know CompTIA, in full disclosure, I'm still a board member of CompTIA.
Yes.
They've got their certifications on AI and doing some great things there to help educate and train, some of the masses out there. So they should be training their people. They should be upskilling their people on, hey, level 1 techs, right? We're gonna make sure that you're more productive and efficient. You're gonna be able to do more. Your job of what you're doing is gonna get a little bit easier. And then we're gonna teach you on how to make sure that you're, making sure checks and balances, quality control of what the AI and the automation is producing. And you're going to help fine tune it when you see errors and train the models and make sure that that stuff, reduces the error rates of what's going out the door and so on. And again, no different than what I rattled off of what we're doing here at Cynet, Joe. That's what MSPs, right? Whether it's in the help desk, service desk, level 1, level 2, whether it's in the finance department, billings down to their customer, automation, so they, eliminate the, daily chore and the mundane tasks. I always preach, and I'm a big fan, that all that productivity improvement and savings of dollars, because you don't have to hire as many people, reinvest, right? Reinvest into the company, reinvest into your people, and so on. So there's a lot, right? Now, I also speak a lot on the topic. It's overwhelming. So what often happens, again, not just MSPs, pretty much every company, is where do I start, right? And I always say, look, start with, just looking at your org and saying, hey, what makes sense, right? What is the low-hanging fruit? What is easy, right? Documentation. It's a great use case, right? It's easy. It's not too technical to make stuff like that happen. And documentation is from marketing to, project work to process automation to, you name it, right? Like, start with the easy stuff, right? Work your way up to fully automating tasks and things within your help desk and your SOC and whatnot, right? Because otherwise it's too overwhelming, right? You're going to try to do too much at one time, and then you're not going to do anything, right? Because you're too overwhelmed.
I'm a former MSP. I talk to MSPs every day, and generally the last 5 or 6 years, even pre-COVID to now, the 3 things that keep them up at night have been pretty consistent. Number 1, cybersecurity. They're worried about their clients getting attacked. Then if they get attacked, they have to allocate resources to them. They're probably going to get fired. They're going to lose money because they're a fixed rate. They might even get sued. So they're really worried about cybersecurity. 2 is human capital. How am I going to keep my current engineers happy? How am I going to get new ones? The unemployment in IT, even with all this AI, is still in the States, certainly less than 1%. And then 3rd, PE has poured in hundreds of millions of dollars. Their friends are selling their MSPs, buying nice cars. How am I going to grow this MSP? How does Cynet help?
So the question is, how does Cynet help grow an MSP?
And those three things that keep MSPs at night, can Cynet help in any of those?
All right,
security, human capital, growth.
Yeah, I mean, Cynet, we play in all of that, right? Obviously, what we do is cybersecurity, right? We help protect, prevent, all that good stuff. So we do help provide that peace of mind, and we help provide it pretty well, as do many others, but obviously I'm a little biased there.
Certainly.
The human capital aspect, right? A lot of what we do does cater towards lean team, right? So, people who decide to partner with Cynet and come along on the journey with us, you don't have to build out your SOC as much as you would if you were doing it all yourself. So not only do we have that platform, and a very powerful platform, if you wanted to fully say, hey, turnkey and leverage our MDR, our SOC, which we call PsyOps, and threat intel and threat hunting and all that stuff, we have all that, right? So that means You don't need to hire as many people, and your people could be focused on more strategic stuff, which, then you're looking at, what are the high value things their people could be working on, which helps with the human capital aspect.
Yeah.
Plus, cyber, right, still one of the hardest things to go recruit and hire for in the MSP space, right? So talent shortage globally, across all businesses in all regions. Then you apply that, and it's it's a bigger number for the SMBs and MSPs, right? Because, why not go work for a Fortune 500
Right.
or a mid-market company doing cyber that's going to pay me a whole lot of money, right? And they're also going to have the budget and do all these things. So in the SMB, MSP world, right, that's a bigger problem as well, right? So partnering with someone like Cynet, we help with that, right? Because we do have the people, we do have the ability to provide the protection and prevention and remediation and stuff like that. What was the third part?
Growth.
Yeah, so obviously growth, MSPs, I don't have the exact stats, but I'm sure you have them, or people could just research them. MSPs that do cyber and subsequently AI now, right, tend to be showing in their numbers they're growing faster,
Yeah.
right? So you've got that aspect, right? You partner with us, we help because you have that. But not only do you have cyber, you got multiple aspects of cyber, right? You got endpoint, network, deception, posture management, email, ITDR, and the list goes on and on, right? And then, our sales team, our go-to-market motion is also working with MSPs to sell into their customers. So if they don't have the skill set and know-how, they could partner up with our sales organization, and we could help them sell cyber into their customers. And we've got a partner program for non-MSPs on the reseller side and so on. So, I think we align pretty well to both of those needs.
When an MSP is looking for a security partner, what questions should they be asking?
What questions should they be asking?
There's lots of security providers out there. So what should they be asking when they're selecting the one they want to partner with?
Yeah, I mean, so for me, I wouldn't be asking the vendor necessarily. I would be going out to the social world and seeing what is being said, positive and negative, right? Or negative and positive. And just see what people are saying and really look for third-party validations. In the cyber world, there's many, right? Gartner has stuff, Forrester has stuff, you got the MITRE stuff. G2 is always a good one, right? Because you could see multiple customers submitting stuff. You could go to the social, depths and see people talking about, hey, this, vendor, had this issue and this vendor did a phenomenal job thanks to Cynet, right? Whatever, right? And why do I say all that, right? Because they'll tell you if that cyber vendor like Cynet is driving the outcomes, right? And look, we got to the point, years ago that it's not a if, but it's a when, right? So everyone understands that. So when the boom happens, is it the vendor that's going to be there with you to make sure that you're up and running and minimize it a bunch, right? So that's kind of what, my recommendation is, and that's kind of what we kind of talk with our prospects and customers on. Just look at the results, right? Is it driving the outcome that you're looking for? No one's going to be 100%, right? But in the event that it's not 100%, how do they respond?
You mentioned earlier CompTIA. Jason, you sit on many boards, some right here in Tampa, University of Tampa, the Straz Theater, a lot of other boards that are publicly listed. What is the value? Why give back as much as you do with everything on your plate?
Yeah, so I mean, to your term right there, give back, right? So University of Tampa is me helping give back to the community to an extent, right, in different ways. Straz Center, Performing Arts Center. It's just a different way, right? And, I'm on several committees there, and in some cases talking technology and helping out when they have questions on certain things. And as part of, we went through strategic planning on, what's the future for Strat Center, where we're going, and a lot of talking about the, reimagination of the Strat Center. And yeah, it's me just being able to give my time back, right? In those areas. And a lot of that stuff is about time. University of Tampa, what's really cool, because we are in this, point in time that will be in history, right? Like the Industrial Revolution, the dot-com, and so on. There will be the AI spoken about. And, a part that I'm playing in, because I am on the strategic planning committee for U Tampa, and we were talking a lot about how do we weave AI and automation and even cyber into the fabric of all things curriculum, right? When there's several goals that universities and higher ed have, right? And one of them is making sure that their people are employable when they graduate, right? So if you come out of college and you're already versed not only in a major, right, like marketing or business or human resource or whatever, it's that much better if you come out and, hey, I'm also versed in the AI and automation tools, and I know how to use them, and I'm coming out at a level where I'm going to be more productive than people who came from schools that don't, right? So I'm pretty passionate about that stuff, and that's a big part that I play in. And then, some of the other boards are, if you look at what I do, I'm on a couple of MSP boards.
Yes.
One MSP board, I'm an advisor to another. The advisor one that I'm on, the one I'm an advisor of is born in the AI world type MSP, and we've done our first 2 acquisitions. We've got 2 more that I think we're currently under LOI, fingers crossed. And it's really, we've got this AI platform that we're able to plug pretty much any MSP into and see, like, night and day difference in efficiency, productivity levels, and so on across the company. The other one's a large, PE-backed consolidator. And it helps me provide my knowledge of the industry and what good looks like, and be able to contribute to make sure that those are, best-in-class companies. And, a lot of that is me giving back because, just enjoy learning that aspect of it as well. And then I'm learning, but also connected, to my customer base, right? Because, we do 30% of our customers are managed service providers globally. So it's just another avenue for me to keep in touch with the base, because I get a more intimate look and view of what's going on in the operations, and I could use that to help solve problems, right? Whether at Cynet or elsewhere. Yeah, but I'm having fun.
You are.
So
Yeah, and you look good. If we replayed this conversation, Jason, in 5 years from now, what would you hope aged well?
what would I hope aged well?
Yeah, that
Hopefully me.
and me. But I mean, what we discussed.
You mean the topics and
Any
everything?
particular topic, yeah.
Well, look, AI is here now, here to stay. It's the future, but it's going to look vastly different.
It is.
Right? So I think that's considered age well. I think it's just going to look vastly different, and we'll understand the impact a lot more in 5 years, right? If you look at just the dot-com boom, right? I mean, in the late 90s, right? I mean, shot up money in the dot-com boom, and then we had the crash, right? And then it leveled off, and then it picked back up, and then it came into its own, right? We're going through that. It's just going to be a quicker, point to hit the top, have a little bit of a dip, and then it'll accelerate faster as well, in terms of what it actually looks like. So we'll know it for sure in 5 years what the impact is, right? And things that, people were fearful for or not, right? We'll know if it's reality. So yeah, if that's how you define age well, sure. But yeah, I think every aspect, right? I mean, leadership and things will evolve, right? The born in the AI world of employees coming out of, high school and college, of these years, 5 years from now, right? Leadership's going to have to change. They're going to have to adapt, right? So yeah, I think everything we've spoken about will age well. if I'm understanding your question.
Yeah, you answered it very well, like you do everything. Quantum, where's quantum going to be, you think? Is it right around the corner? Is it hiding? Is it there?
Look, I mean, no different than AI, right? People talking about AI 50 years ago or however long. People have been talking about quantum for a while, and there's lots of companies that are, trying to crack the code on that, and various levels of success and things. Yeah, I mean, at some point that'll become a reality when there's enough people trying to solve that problem and make that innovation happen, and enough money is flowing into it, and it is, because I know a handful of investors that are very active in quantum computing and so on. It'll have its day, right? I mean, it needs to have its day. It's partially what's needed to drive probably the second wave of AI, right? Because, just think of, all going on, and the speed and processing power and all the data center build outs and all this, right? My guess is, that fuels the money flowing into, the people trying to solve the quantum equation.
It's an exciting time.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for like rising leaders that are rising right now and avoid burnout? What advice do you have?
I may not be the best person to
You're
answer
not
this,
burned
but-
out. You
No,
balance
I'm not
things.
burned out.
Yeah.
I love what I do.
Yeah, I know.
Right? That's part of my problem, right?
Right.
I probably wouldn't even know what burnout is because I just love
You do.
it, right?
Yeah, I could tell.
I'm not saying I don't have bad days of
course.
sorts, right? And feel tired and exhausted. But, I think, to that point, and, hopefully this doesn't come across like no duh, goes back to the question about the interviews, that it's two-way. And I said, to some extent, you are interviewing them, and you want to make sure it's a place that
That's right.
you get behind and align behind where they're taking it and excited about what they do. And, tied to your question, right? If you like what you do and you're enjoying it and having fun and surrounding yourself with good people and a good mission and vision, you're less likely to experience burnout, right? Because what you're doing is driving towards a certain thing, no different than my North Star comment or my, here's where we're going, right? The goal. It provides you that, all right, here's why I'm doing what I'm doing, right? I often find people have burnout or experience burnout when they don't know what they're working towards or why they're doing what they're doing, and they just feel like they're doing busy work, right? So my advice to people that are, early in their career or whatnot, make sure you go to a place that you're passionate about, you're aligned behind what they're doing, how they plan on getting there, right? Ask a lot of those questions. Make sure you understand what you're doing is actually contributing, right? Because if you don't feel like it's contributing, right, you're going to feel like you're in that rat race, like just doing mundane tasks, and then you're going to get burned out, you're going to be bored, you're not going to be happy, that's going to spill over into your personal life and so on. So yeah.
You're inspiring me, Jason. What gives you optimism about our industry?
Optimism, yeah. I mean, look, AI is going to progress things fast,
Yeah.
right? But things are going to just get more complex. As they become faster, that's an aspect of complexity. This first part's not what's inspiring me about the industry, but I'll get to what. Threat actors are going to do more, and they're not going away anywhere. But with that, provides lots of opportunity for the managed service provider industry and the stuff that we all do. So that creates growth, that creates opportunity, that creates innovation, and so on. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that, there's always people talking about is, this the end of MSPs? I'm a believer that it's just the beginning.
Yeah.
Right? And when you follow the money, that's where things really start to get interesting. And yes, you've got the evergreens, the new charters, the coursers, the Titan MSPs. You've got, all the big PE back roll-up, plans out there, companies out there. That's just the start of money coming in. There's many other VCs, PE, people who have money that, see this as a really viable business model starting to come into the mix. And as there's more money flowing in, that funds lots of new things, exciting ideas, creativity, ways for the MSPs become the epicenter of solving these problems, right? And, restaurant owners need to be focused on delivering great service, great product and experiences and all that stuff. Let them focus on that and let managed service providers handle everything else from a technology standpoint and more, and become those advisors. So I think we're in early innings. And I think as, the industry evolves, technology evolves, that creates tremendous opportunity and tailwinds for MSPs and the industry.
Jason, the best leaders you know have what one thing in common?
Can I steal your thing?
What is it?
Discipline. And look, every leader, myself included, I had to learn, right? You need the discipline.
Yeah.
You can't do everything, right? You use frameworks, right? Whatever it may be, right? Like if you have no discipline, if you're all over the place, if you have nothing that you're driving towards, use the concept, guiding principles, none of this stuff, right? Your organization is going to be all over the place, right? You're not going to be helping, and tying into your burn question, you're going to burn a lot of people out, right? So the discipline to know where you're going, try to stay on course. It'll never be perfect because we're in a fast-paced industry. You'll have to pivot.
Right.
People need to understand that. The discipline to, hey, no, you can't go from point A to point Z overnight. And the discipline is, all right, I'm going from point A to B. When we make that happen, we're going to go from B to C, C to D, and so on. Patience as well. So.
Jason, is there something you firmly believed in 10, 15 years ago, firmly believed in that you no longer believe in now?
I don't think I've ever been asked that question, Joe. I'll have to think about that one.
There's, it was only 10 years ago, so 2015 or so.
This one's about me. I thought I knew everything 10, 15,
Did
20
you
years
really?
ago. Now I know that not to be true.
I find that as I get older, I have more questions than I have answers, by the way.
Well, I joke, and I'm not going to say that's my answer.
Right.
But look, when you're younger in your career, to some extent, you do think you have all the answers and ideas. And look, some people do, and they go on and have great careers and do great things, right? But even those people aren't perfect, right? But then you do learn and you evolve and realize that it's not about the individual. It is about the team and the experiences and skill sets and things that the team bring to the table. And it's about making sure that you lean on the experiences of others because they have the pattern recognition, the been there, done that, the know-how, and learn from it, right? So, whether it was 10, 15, maybe even longer, right? Yeah, you come out of college, I was no different. I'm going to conquer the world, right? I'm going to, show everyone. And then you have a little humble pie, be like, oh, wow, this is what it really is, right? You don't have that understanding in college, right? So I joked about it. I used it as an example. Probably not my final answer. It may come back. But,
Okay.
That's probably something that, thought I knew and then, had the humble pie and realized and evolved. And, to an extent, I do, and I did it even with my new team over at Cynet when I first came on at Cynet. And I used it once upon a time at ConnectWise when I just brought together a new team. I do this exercise. It's a series of exercises, but one point we go through, hey, write down on a piece of paper things that you most accomplish or feel most accomplished and proud of, and milestones and things you've achieved and experiences that you love telling people. And we go around the room, and everyone reads off their stuff, and they're proud, and they should be, right? Some great stuff. And then I do a thing where I'm like, all right, now take it in one of your hands, crumple it up, throw it away. And then there's a moment of silence and shock factor and all that. And then I said, why did I do that? I said, look, the great thing is those are experiences, right? Experiences, milestones from the past, things that you want to draw on the, what worked, what didn't, what not to do and learn from the mistakes and all that stuff, right? I need you to bring that in here so we don't make the same mistakes, we don't go down the same path and have the same failures, and the things that worked, make sure that we find a way to put it in here, reinvent it, make it better. I said, but now all of your peers just heard the great things and experiences and knowledge that you bring to the table that, hey, when they have a need, they'll know, hey, Joe is well experienced and have done these things in their past. Now, hey, I'm going to go to Joe if I got a question on a topic that I'm less comfortable with, right? So it's really about bringing the team together and understand how they could lean on each other for what experiences and knowledge and expertise and all that stuff. So I've used that a couple of times. Again, it's all part of, the journey I had, because once upon a time I thought I did know everything, right? And I could keep going on and that stuff, right? I could tell you stories of the exercise.
Yeah, that's a really cool one. I like that one a lot. So I started, the story, Jason. I started the MSP back in the 90s. So I was working way too hard, not paying attention to myself and not exercising anymore. I'm in front of the doctor and she tells me I'm at 340 pounds. So I'd gained all this terrible weight, right? And she says to me, if you don't lose this weight, you're not going to see your daughter graduate. So it scared the life out of me. So you would think that motivated, but it just ended up angering me, right? So I spent the next 6-7 months, lost about 130 pounds, and I kept it off, right? These aren't finishing lines, right? These are lifelong changes. So you've alluded to it many times. When I tell people this story, they always say, what's your secret, what you do? And I just say discipline, right? You've mentioned it more than once, right? Focus, willpower, routine, I consider all under the discipline spectrum. So we talked a little bit about how leaders have discipline and what it means, but specifically, what does it mean to you, discipline? How does it play a role in your life?
How does it play a role in it plays a role in lots of areas of my life, personal and professional, right? On the personal side, and I'll use the health thing, right? I'm not going to say exact, but close. No, not even close to or exact.
You lost a lot of weight.
It's similar.
Yeah.
Right. COVID hits. Running a big company over a handful of years as COO and a year into my CEO tenure at ConnectWise, and I put on some weight, I guess. And up till COVID, I didn't realize it, right? And COVID hits, and yes, COVID, crappy thing globally for everyone, terrible, right? But there were some benefits, right? And for me and my family personally, right? Hey, I was home more, but also my wife's like, hey, let's go on a walk. And I'm like, all right. And so started going on a walk and literally got 0.2 of a mile in. And I'm like, Rach, I can't do this.
Wow.
And keep in mind at that point, I was actually sick, may have had COVID. I will never know because they lost test results and retook the test 3 weeks later and whatever. But it was like that was my point, right? I didn't have a doctor tell me, but at that point I'm like, holy cow. And then I go home and look in the mirror, I'm like, holy cow. And then, from that day for, 4 months, 5 months, I forget exactly how long, I just started walking, right? That 0.2 of a mile or a quarter of a mile went up to a mile, went up to 2 miles, went up to 3 miles, went up to some days 4.5 miles, and then I was swimming in my pool in the backyard, right, in between conference calls, and when I had breaks, I'd go and do this stuff and jump in the pool, and I'd come out looking like a shower on the next call. Discipline of waking up every day and doing that, and fast forward to, I lost 30 pounds when I did that. I've maintained. Yeah. And so part of discipline in my life is making sure I maintain and that, I'm aware that I'm not going to get back to that level. And, I'll tell you, it's a few times a year that I'm asking my wife to pull up. She has side by side. It's like 5 months apart, 4 months apart. a picture of me at the ConnectWise holiday party,
Huh.
and then a picture on 4th of July. So 6, 7 months
Yeah.
apart, night and day different,
Really?
right? And so I've maintained that, ebbs and flows. And I'm not upset at myself when, not a bad day, but call it cheat days. And I like go and eat and drink
Sure.
and so on, right? But then I know, like, all right, let me, get it back down to where I like it. And right now I'm, a week plus into, I've got 10 more pounds that I set to lose back then that I didn't, go fully through with. And now I'm trying to be disciplined to make that work, right? And there's lots more discipline in personal life. And how do I do it? It's walking again. It's making sure that I'm eating healthier, and the discipline of, yes, I see all that candy and stuff I want to eat and devour or drink. And I'm like, all right, well, instead of having a 200 calorie, beer, I'll go with the Coors Light or the Michelob Ultra, things like that. And then, no, professional life, I mean, and look, I'm not perfect at it, Joe, just to be clear, right? Because I too sometimes over rotate on, we got to do this, otherwise we'll be left behind.
Right.
And that's why you got your team, and you hope your team is a great team to manage up and hold you accountable too, right? That's part of the whole process, right? And I think that even ties in the discipline of an individual or an organization is the system put in place. But it's making sure that, I do, a check probably weekly. All right, am I putting too much on people? And my expectations too great? That's one aspect. Another aspect is we have our destinations. And if we don't have a destination, right, there's one area in my org that, I'm not 100% clear on the destination. So we're doing continuous meetings until we land on where that, current point in time destination will be. So we have something to march towards, right? So it helps with prioritization, all that stuff. And then there's the KPIs and metrics. And again, discipline from a pipeline standpoint. Well, you could probably miss a day and make up for it on day 2. But, if you got a weekly goal and you wait to the last day, right? Well, so it's discipline of looking at your metrics and goals, on an appropriate level, whether that's daily, whether it's weekly, monthly, quarterly. So there's a lot that goes into it from a professional business standpoint. Discipline is, trying to stick to, how do you avoid all the fire drills and detracting from, the strategic, proactive side of things, right? Well, can't worry about the emails that are sitting in your inbox. If there's something important, I've learned people will call you, right? They'll text you, they'll Teams you, be like, hey, I sent you an email. I know you haven't responded, probably haven't seen it. Can you go, take a look? I need an answer. And then getting to them when you need to, right? And discipline is making sure that I'm empowering my teams and leaders, and that I'm not micromanaging. Now, when I say that I'm not, doesn't mean I won't, but if I am, that means something's wrong, right? And I had a call with one of my leaders today, and I educated, hey, if I'm doing this or asking these questions, just let's be aligned. That's because I think there's something wrong or not right, or I'm not getting the answer, or I don't feel good about something. I keep chatting through things. Not all of it ties into discipline. I think most of it does. But.
As a kid in your household, was discipline exemplified? Was it talked about? Was it just assumed?
I mean, me and my brothers grew up in the 70s, 80s, early 90s, and so on.
Italian mother.
Yeah, Irish father. My father was, in the Army for a few years when he was young. We had chores, we had all these things, right? So I feel like there was the right amount of discipline. I feel, I am who I am today because my parents, right? They instilled not just discipline, but work ethic. And if you're going to do something, do it right. Don't, mail it in, put your all into it. So, growing up, a lot of that was instilled in me from my parents for sure. Yeah.
Is there a question, Jason, you wish more people would ask you?
No.
None at all.
Question more people would ask me.
You wish people would ask you.
I don't know. That's a good question. What motivates me, maybe?
That's my next question. What does motivate you?
Was that really your next question?
Yes, it was honestly my next question.
All right.
Yeah, honestly, yes.
Well, first, let me go. That's probably a question that people don't ask enough. Because you can tell a lot from a person by some of their answers
Right.
for that, right? And it's probably why you asked,
Yeah.
right? But what motivates me? Yeah, my family motivates me,
Right.
right? I mean, my wife will tell you, and we just went through it. It's the holiday season. I don't really have needs, Joe, right? Like, and granted, partially, yeah, I've done well, so I could do what I want when
Some
I want,
liberty,
and
yep.
so on, right? But she's like, "What do you want for Christmas? What do you want for your birthday?" Right? I don't want any. Like, I love what I do, right? My hobbies are, the advisory, the board, the running company, Cynet. You know, I go to sporting events, Tampa Bay Lightning, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, watch a lot of sports on TV. There's not much I need from that standpoint. So that stuff doesn't motivate me. What motivates me is that, I'm able to make sure that my kids and their kids and the broader family is impacted by all the hard work and effort and stuff that I've done to be able to provide. That's a big part of my motivation, right? My motivation is tying back to giving back, doing the stuff I'm doing at U Tampa and the Stratton Center for Performing Arts, and when I take a call from an ex-colleague or I take a call from MSP business owner or a vendor in the MSP space that's starting out that, has questions or, hey, my board's giving me issues. Do you have any advice, right? That stuff motivates me because I'm able to give back. What motivates me is, protecting, right? What motivates me is doing what we do, whether it was at ConnectWise or now here at Cynet for managed service providers, right? Vendors that are in this space that are doing it right are impacting lives, right? And even look at, pre the private equity, right? I mean, a lot of, early people in the vendor space and many still in the Tampa area, right? Changed lives, right? Just look at even what Arlen did, and it's one example
Arlen
around
Sorensen.
peer groups. Yeah, Arlen Sorensen and peer groups, right? Changed lives with, back then HTG
Changed mine.
and then IT Nation Evolve. And if you look at even where many of the early onset of private equity, right? They started to do stuff within the IT Nation Evolve peer community, and that was a lot of the mergers and acquisitions going on as people were sitting in rooms and bonding and forming relationships. So, and that stuff predates me to some extent. Obviously, I led it while I was CEO at ConnectWise, but that's the stuff that motivates me.
I know what you mean by the gifts, by the way, Jason. My family always, I don't want any more possessions. I want experiences, is what I tell them.
Yeah.
I want
would agree with
dinner.
that.
I want to do
Yep.
something. If I want something, I just buy it. So it's not, and I have enough, by the way. So, yeah, more experiences. So, given your motivation, you mentioned your family legacy, impact. It was what I gathered, and giving back and protecting. How do you measure success?
The smile on people's faces, Joe.
You put a smile on my face.
Look, again, partially joking, but not really, right? I mean, if you have an impact that positively impacted that person, you're going to see it in their demeanor, in their facial expressions, their life, right? Or it could be a business and how they operate and so on. That's a good sign, right? That's the stuff that you can't really see in numbers and so on, right? But yeah, I mean, I could go through examples, right? All right, well, you know, when President Dahlberg at U Tampa came on board, we did a lunch, you know, one-on-one. She's like, you know, what would you like to see? And I was passionate about AI being embedded within the curriculum. Well, now everyone's talking about it, right? So to me, that's a sign that, hey, you know, it's going in the right direction. And then here's what has been rolled out, right? More signs, right? And it's not just one department or major, it's across multiple. And, you know, that's to me, you know, leading indicators leading towards that will be a reality. So everything's probably a little bit different of measurement and how I measure and see progress is happening. I do so many different things, again, whether it's personal with my family or, you know, the stuff I do. So,
Has there been anything in the last month or so you changed your mind on?
yeah, probably 1,000 things just while I'm sitting here, Joe. Well, define change my mind on it, like just anything or
Anything.
I could use the example of yesterday. I went to Tampa Club with Alan Comet, my chief revenue
great.
officer, and I was going to grab a drink and change mine. And said, look,
Want to show your love for discipline, inspiration, and the Joey Pinz podcast? Now's your chance. Introducing the brand new Joey Pinz merch store, where style meets discipline. Choose from premium apparel, cozy hoodies, stylish hats, durable bags, and your new favorite coffee mug, all featuring the iconic Joey Pinz logo. Perfect for podcast fans, discipline enthusiasts, or as unique gifts for friends and family. Every purchase supports the Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations podcast, helping us continue to inspire greatness and promote positive change. Visit joeypins.com/store today and wear your discipline proudly. Joey Pinz merch. Wear it, share it, and live it.
I'm going to make it 8 days without a drink this month, right? So there's that example.
Do you change your mind often?
No, I don't think. I mean, I'm flexible and yeah, I've got opinions and passions and emotional about things, but I am a reasonable person that I'll keep an open mind. That if there's a better way, different way, a way I wasn't thinking, I'll definitely explore and try and change my mind, you know, to go do things for sure. Goes back to what I, you know, learned, you know, over the 10 or 15 years or changed, right, where I thought I knew everything and I had all the answers, and then I realized I got, right, so not one person has all the answers, right? So, yeah, I changed my mind probably often.
Yeah.
Right, and when I have the right team in place and they're managing up, yeah, I change my mind. So.
And when you're selecting your team, Jason, what is that process like? So when you interview somebody, this is art versus science question. So you kind of get the resume, you see where they've been, all the kind of scientists and metrics. Is the last judge your gut? Do you play your gut into it at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think gut always comes into, right, because look, I'm not going to be one of those people that says my gut 100% of the time. But generally, I mean, and it's not the last. I mean, your gut feeling usually happens pretty quick, right? Gut feeling aside, when you're interviewing leaders or any team member for that matter, you generally know within the first 10 or 15 minutes if, you know, they're the right person for the company, and then there's the right person for me, right? Because there's personality aspect too that comes into things. Generally, good interviewers, you know, are able to figure that out in the first 10 or 15 minutes, and then the rest is validation and seeing how, you know, they interact and communicate the questions they ask and so on. So, you know, that's a lot of, you know, during the interview. And I try to get a sense pretty quick. Now, on the flip side, when you get to that 10, 15 minutes and realize, yeah, not for me, and you don't want to be the person that cuts it short, right? Then you're sitting there for another 40, 45 minutes and you're like, all right.
Tough one.
Yeah. I forget the original question, but in interviews and what I look for, is that what it is?
Yeah. How often do you use art versus science, your gut versus?
Yeah, and then there's questions, right? And I won't go into the details, but there's, all right, do they have the experiences, right? So you got to vet that out, right? What they said on their resume, are they able to talk to it? And again, generally, you could figure it out really quick if they're just reiterating the bullet point that's on a resume, right? Chances are they can't speak much to it, right? If they show emotion in their voice and passion, they've been there, done that, have that life experience, and bring that, experience and pattern recognition to the table. So you get the validation. Then there's are they a culture fit? Are they going to work with the team? What questions can you ask that will bring that out, right? So tell me about a time this. What personalities do you work best with? What personalities do you work less well with, right? What are your pet peeves on, working with the team? Who is your team, right? If they say the team is the team I'm leading and managing, most of the time that's the wrong answer, right? The team is generally the team that you're a part of. And, everyone has different opinions. So I'm sure people that will be listening to this will be like, no, he's wrong on that. But, I kind of look for that, the team that you're on, that you're going to go to battle with, that you're going to go build something, really great, that you're going to go make that positive impact in the world with, that's where you got to make sure they fit in. And then, there's questions around, hey, are we going to work well together, personality-wise, right? Tell me about your style, your work ethic. When the laptop is shut at night, what do you do, right? And so on. What are their values, right? Family, you name it. So,
Jason, we've been talking about having this discussion for years, and it finally came together. At least, right? It would seem.
Easily 2, yeah.
Easily
for sure.
2 years, yeah. And shout out to Miss Janine Edwards. We got everything together, and I thank you so much for your time. We're here in Tampa, and you're going to continue to grow in this Tampa area as well. You love it here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're so I was Tampa, or employee colleague number 1 at Cynet in Tampa. I think by the end of this month, we're in a week or so, we got another new hire starting. I think we'll be 14, 15 people in Tampa. We've got, I don't know, we've got 4 offices right now that fit anywhere between, 3, 4, 5 people in office in a co-work space in downtown Tampa.
Yeah, great location, and love it here. Jason, thank you so much for your time, my friend. I really appreciate you doing this. I know you think you're not good at it, but you're excellent at it, and I really, really appreciate your time.
Well, I appreciate it, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with 1 or 2 of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources, and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.